I'm going to factor, and these are not perfect squares on the end, so I have to use the AC method of factoring. So AC method of factoring, you take the first number and the last number, and you multiply them. 2 times 18 equals 36. Now I'm going to break those down by dividing. 36 divided by 1 is 36. 36 divided by 2 is 18. 36 divided by 3 is 12. 36 divided by 4 is 9. You can't do 36 divided by 5. 36 divided by 6 is 6. And once you start repeating yourself, you're finished. So I'm done because I have 2 6s. Now I want to bring down the first term and the sign after it. Now I'm going to take this one and split it up with the factors over here. And here's how you do that. You want to work backwards. You want to add to get 13. So that would be 9 and 4. So you always want to do the biggest one first. So I'm going to put the 9, and then any letters go with that. Okay, so now I have a negative 9, but I want a negative 13. So that 4 has to be negative as well, because those two in the middle have to add to the one that you just split up. So a negative 9 and a negative 4 is a negative 13. Then I bring down the last term, put parentheses around the first two terms, and see what they have in common. I can't divide a 2 and a 9 by anything in common, but they each have an x in common. So I have a 2 and 2 x's. I took an x out, so that's a 2 and an x left, then a minus sign. I have a 9, an x, and a y. I took an x out, so that's a 9y left. Bring down the sign after your parentheses. Now these terms, you do not put parentheses around those. You just want to see what you can divide them by. And don't worry about the signs, because you already took care of the sign when you copied that negative down just now. Okay, 4 and 18, I can divide. You need the biggest number you can divide them by. 4 and 18, the biggest number I can divide those by is 2. And each of these terms also has a y. They do not have both have an x, but they do have a y. So now I write down what's in the parentheses, and whatever's not in parentheses, they have to go together. And when you've done that, you are finished. So it's a totally different method than you're probably used to, but once you get used to it, it's a lot faster than guess and check. Take the first and the last and multiply them. 3 times 10 equals 30. And I'm ultimately trying to add to get 11. I'm going to bring down the first term, 3x squared plus. I'm going to add to get 11. So 30 divided by 1 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 30 divided by 5 is 6. That adds up to 11. And I put the biggest one first and the letters that's with that 11. So right now I have a positive 6. I want a positive 11. So that 5 also has to be positive, because those two have to add up to the one that you just split apart. I'm going to copy down the last term, put parentheses around the first two terms. I can divide those by 3, and they have an x in common. So I have a 3 and 2 x's. I took a 3 and an x out. That's an x left, plus sign. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Have an x and a y. I took the x out, so that's a y. Bring down the sign after the parentheses, and you are just going to look at these, not put parentheses around them, and see what they have in common. I can divide both of those numbers by 5, and they have a y in common. So now you write down what's in parentheses, and what's not in parentheses, they have to go together, and you're finished. First times last, 4 times 14 is 56. I'm going to bring down the first term. Okay, I want to add to get 15. So 56 divided by 1 is 56. 56 divided by 2 is 28. Oops, sorry, don't know what I'm doing there. 56 divided by 3 doesn't work. 56 divided by 4 is 14. I'm adding to get 15, so that adds up to 18, so I'm not there yet. 56 divided by 5 doesn't work. 6 doesn't work. 56 divided by 7 equals 8, and that adds up to 15. So I want the biggest one first, and the letters that's with the 15, x, y. Okay, I have positive 8. I want a positive 15. So that 7 also has to be positive. Bring down the last term. Parentheses around the first two terms. I can divide by 4, and I have an x in common. A 4 and 2 x's. I took a 4 and 1 x out, so that's an x left over. Plus sign. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Have an x and a y. I took an x out, so that's a y left over. Bring down the plus sign. And look at the next two terms. 7 and 14, I can divide those by 7, and they have a y in common. So my final answer is x plus 2y times 4x plus 7y.